Hello. This video is a response to the most frequently asked questions that we receive here at Byther Farm. And if you just have one question you want answered, if you have a look in the video description below, I'll put timestamps and it will show you each of the questions, and so you can go straight to the one that you're looking for. Here in the UK, we don't use hardiness growing zones like they do in United States of America and in Australia, and probably on other large continents too. The UK has what Charles Dowding has described as an oceanic temperate climate. So it's a temperate climate, but because we're a set of islands, it's fairly mild here, and we always have the influence of the sea almost wherever we are. But in terms of hardiness, this area would be considered USA hardiness zone 8B. It's not an exact equivalent, it is an indication of our lowest temperature each year, but our last frost date is somewhere around the middle of May. And our first frosts here are usually the second or third week in November, and then they're very light frosts. We don't very often get prolonged periods of freezing weather. We get the occasional snow, but it's not very often or for very long. And there have been exceptional years where the temperatures have got very low. But generally maybe -6 or 7 degrees Celsius, occasionally down to 10 and 13, and a few years back there was a -19, and I'll put all the Fahrenheit equivalents on the screen too. And what that means is that we can grow quite a wide variety of vegetables, a few Mediterranean climate loving plants. We can't grow anything tropical or subtropical, but it's a great environment to be growing cooler loving plants, currants, brassicas, and squashes do okay here too, or at least some of them. We tend to have a very humid environment, which means that both tomatoes and potatoes can be susceptible to blight. We have periods where it's fairly dry, but most of all, we have a really good balance of dry and warm and rain. Lots of people have asked what kind of beans it is that I grow when I'm growing them as perennials. Well, the answer to that is it doesn't really matter about the variety of bean. What matters is your climate. I'll leave a link in the video description to the type of beans that I've grown as perennials in the past and grown very well. But what matters the most is that you have a climate that is mild enough to see your beans through the winter. Now, in a very cold winter like we had 2 or 3 years ago, a deep layer of mulch kept some of the beans alive, and others didn't cope with it at all. And if you don't know what I'm talking about at all, I'll leave a link to my beans videos about growing runner beans as perennials. In the comments section of almost every video, I am asked why I wear these gloves, and it's because I have a reduced immune system. And before I started wearing them, I found that I was very, very regularly getting infections in my hands after I'd been handling the soil. I'm quite slow in recovering from infections and illnesses. So in the past, if I cut my hand or I got an infection around my nails or anything, that would be gone in a week to 10 days. Now it can be a month to 6 weeks, and will make me feel really, really poorly. So just to safeguard myself against that, I wear these gloves. I've been looking for a pair of kind of rubber gloves that you would normally do washing up in that fit me well enough that I can still feel seeds as I'm using them, and I can still feel what soil is like through them. I haven't found any yet, and when I do, I will let you know. I wouldn't encourage everybody to be wearing disposable gloves. That's just not sustainable. I do use them. I take them off and dry them out and use them repeatedly until they've got holes around the fingers. Doesn't matter if they get holes in this bit. This isn't, the palm isn't where I have a problem. It's usually in my fingers that I have a problem with getting the infections. And in the winter I wear these, but I also wear thermal lined waterproof gloves as well on top. And if you haven't got issues around infections, then gardening gloves and those big thick winter gloves are absolutely fine. Byther Farm is not open to the public. We do have visitors here, but only by prior appointment. It is, after all, our home. But we're not receiving visitors at the moment because of social distancing and the need for some level of shielding. Byther Farm is in Monmouthshire, the southeast Wales in the UK. So we have the warmth that's brought by the Gulf Stream across the Atlantic and up the Bristol Channel. But we also have the coastal winds too. I do have a programme of courses that I teach here on site, although not during 2020. But I'm developing those courses for you to be able to take online, and as soon as they're ready I'll announce those in my newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, there's a link in the video description for that. I really don't send out very many newsletters, so you won't get bombarded with information from them. I think in the last couple of years I've sent out maybe 4 or 5, so I will only send them out if I've got some news. And the other thing that's happening in the next few months is that my first book will be published in the spring, and from sometime in September, October 2020, you'll be able to pre-order that. It'll be available in bookshops and also on my website, as well as the publisher's website and those very well-known online shopping stores. If you want to support the work that we do here the most, please either buy the book from the Byther Farm website or from Permanent Publications at permaculture.co.uk. I do occasionally offer handcrafted items for sale, things like patchwork cushions and quilts made from vintage material, and things like neck warmers as kindly modelled by my daughter in this picture. And I always offer those to my supporters over on Patreon first, so they have first choice of those. And so if you haven't found my Patreon page yet, it's patreon.com/Liz Zorab. I'm also asked quite often who does my filming and what equipment I use. So I do all the videoing, the editing, and all the production stuff. And I'll leave a link in the video description to a list with all the equipment I use and links for that. And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one. And I also hope you'll join me again next time.